Randall had always been a daring soul, seeking out the most exhilarating adventures. The thrill of scaling mountains, gliding through the air, and even conquering the world's highest peak had all been accomplished. However, now he yearned for the heart-pounding excitement of undersea exploration. After much research, Randall chose Mossel Bay, a place renowned for its vast population of great white sharks, to try his hand at shark cage diving. The idea of being submerged in a steel cage, teetering precariously on the ocean's surface while the colossal predator swam around, both fascinated and terrified him. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that could go one of two ways: an unforgettable thrill or a terrifying disaster. The journey to Mossel Bay was long, but when Randall arrived, he was struck by its immense beauty. The cerulean waters of the ocean shimmered under the sun's rays. The coastline was a picturesque panorama of rocky cliffs and sandy beaches. The tranquil town was small, but it was clear that this place held great power, with the possibility of danger lurking just below the water's surface. Randall's excitement grew as he boarded the boat and set out towards the diving location. The cage was ready and waiting for him, and he couldn't wait to be lowered into the water. As the cage sank into the depths of the ocean, Randall's anticipation turned to fear. The water was murky, and he couldn't see far beyond the steel cage. The silence was deafening, and the only sound was the rhythmic breathing of the diving crew. Suddenly, a group of great white sharks began to circle the cage, their teeth glistening in the murky water as they attacked the steel pegs. Randall could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he watched them, wondering if the cage could withstand their attack. But as the sharks continued to circle, the cage remained sturdy, and Randall felt confident that nothing bad could happen. As the minutes ticked by, the tension grew palpable as the sharks kept circling the cage, their razor-sharp teeth bared in a menacing display. Randall and the crew felt a sense of relief when the sharks eventually stopped attacking the cage, only for their relief to quickly turn to confusion as they suddenly disappeared without a trace. In the murky waters, a thick layer of foam and bubbles made it difficult to see anything. But in the depths, Randall caught a glimpse of something that made his heart race with fear. A massive figure was moving towards the cage with deadly precision. It was coming fast, and there was nowhere to hide. As it approached, the figure became clearer, revealing itself to be a colossal great white shark. Its massive body dwarfed all other sharks they had seen before. Its scarred sides bore the evidence of countless battles, and its cold, dead eyes were fixed on the steel cage with an unerring focus. The crew and Randall watched in terror as the shark kept circling the cage, getting closer and closer with each pass. The atmosphere was thick with fear as they waited for what would happen next. The suspenseful silence was shattered when the shark disappeared suddenly into the depths of the ocean, leaving them all gasping for air. With the sudden appearance of the colossal great white shark, the crew of the diving expedition was thrown into a frenzy of fear and panic. They knew that they had to act quickly to save Randall's life. Without hesitation, they pulled on the rope that would lift the steel cage back to the surface. As they hauled it up, Randall could feel his heart pounding in his chest, and his body was shaking with fear. Just as he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, thinking he had made it out alive, the bottom of the cage was struck by a massive force. It felt like a powerful blow from a sledgehammer, and Randall was thrown off balance, his body jerking wildly in the water. He knew that something terrible was happening, and he could feel his fear growing with each passing moment. The sound of the impact was deafening, and Randall could feel his ears ringing. The water around him churned and frothed, and he knew that something was trying to break through the cage. His mind raced as he tried to imagine what kind of monster was capable of such a feat of strength. Randall's mind raced as he frantically scanned the murky waters, desperate to identify the source of the massive collision that had sent him hurtling out of the cage. Dread filled his heart as he suddenly realized that the colossal great white shark they had seen earlier was the culprit. Before he could even think of a way to defend himself, the beast launched itself like a torpedo, its razor-sharp teeth glistening in the water. In one swift and bone-chilling moment, the shark sunk its jaws into Randall's upper torso, tearing it away from his body with a violent snap. The sensation of excruciating pain mixed with utter terror as Randall felt his life slipping away in the jaws of the monstrous predator. The world around Randall seemed to vanish in an instant as he found himself trapped inside the jaws of the great white shark. The darkness was absolute, and the only sound he could hear was the deafening crunch of the shark's razor-sharp teeth slicing through his flesh and bones. The pain was indescribable, as if every inch of his body was being ripped apart by 1,000 knives. His ribs were crushed under the pressure of the shark's jaws, and he knew in that moment that he was doomed. As the shark clenched its massive jaws on Randall's body, his lifeless form hung limply in the water, at the mercy of the animal's frenzied movements. With each violent thrash, the water churned with an ominous blend of swirling crimson and murky green. The shark's razor-sharp teeth shredded Randall's flesh, creating a gory, macabre display in the water. The predator's movements were so powerful that it dragged Randall's mangled remains down into the dark, abyssal depths of the ocean, far from the safety of the surface. It was a gruesome and unsettling sight, a grim reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the waves. The attack was so sudden that the diving crew was not able to react accordingly. Randall's body was never found, and the story of the attack sent fear and terror to the diving community. It was a reminder that nature was unforgiving, and even the bravest and most experienced of thrill seekers were not immune to its dangers. Juan woke up in the early hours of the morning. He lived in a small town in Florida, right on the coast, and his job as a fisherman required him to wake up early in order to get a head start on the day. He got out of bed, stretched his arms and legs, and then put on his fishing clothes. Juan had been a fisherman for most of his life. He had learned the trade from his father, who had been a fisherman before him. Juan loved being out on the water, feeling the salt air on his face and the wind in his hair. He loved the challenge of trying to catch fish, and he loved the freedom that came with being his own boss. Juan walked out of his small house and walked down to the dock where he kept his boat. The dock was busy with other fishermen who were also getting ready for their day on the water. Juan greeted his fellow fishermen with a smile and a wave, and then began to prep his boat. He checked the fuel, the water, and the other important systems on his boat, making sure that everything was in good working order. Then he loaded his gear, including his fishing rods, bait, and tackle, and set off into the open sea. The sky was just starting to turn pink and orange as Juan set out on his boat. He loved the feeling of the sun rising behind him and the way the light made the water sparkle. He headed out to his favorite fishing spot, a few miles from shore, and began to cast his lines. Fishing was not always easy, and it required a lot of patience and skill. Juan had to know where the fish would likely be, and he had to be able to read the currents and the tides in order to catch them. He spent several hours casting his lines, moving the boat around to different spots, and trying different kinds of bait. Finally, he felt a tug on his line, signaling that he had caught something. He began to reel in his line, feeling the weight of the fish pulling against the rod. When he finally saw the fish, he felt a rush of excitement. It was a large grouper, one of the most prized catches in Florida. He carefully brought the fish onto the boat, taking care to remove the hook and to measure it to make sure it was within the legal size limit. He put the fish into a cooler and then set out to catch more. After several minutes, he felt a strong tug on his line. He knew immediately that it was no ordinary fish. He began to reel in his line, feeling the weight of the creature pulling against his rod. As he brought the fish closer to the boat, he realized that he had caught something big. He could see the dorsal fin cutting through the water, and he knew that it was a shark. He could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins as he battled the fish, trying to bring it in. Juan had mixed emotions about the catch. On the one hand, he felt a rush of excitement at the thought of catching such a powerful creature. On the other hand, he knew that sharks were dangerous animals, and he wasn't sure if he was equipped to handle one. He carefully pulled the shark closer to the boat, trying to keep a safe distance. As he got a closer look, he could see that it was a bull shark, a species known for its aggression and strength. The shark thrashed and fought against the line, trying to break free. Juan struggled to keep his footing as the boat rocked back and forth in the water. He knew he had to be careful, or the shark could easily pull him overboard. After a 20-minute battle, Juan was finally able to bring the shark up to the side of the boat. He could see its razor-sharp teeth and its powerful jaws. He knew that he had to be careful if he was going to release the shark back into the water. He carefully removed the hook from the shark's mouth and took a few quick photos, wanting to remember the experience. Just as he was about to measure the length of the shark, it began jerking around and bit him on his ankle. Luckily, he was able to pry away its jaws instantly and only left him with minor wounds. Because of this, he immediately decided to lower the shark back to the water. For a moment, the shark seemed disoriented and confused. Then it suddenly surged forward, disappearing into the depths of the ocean. Juan breathed a sigh of relief, feeling grateful for the experience, but also glad that it was over. Juan sat back in the boat and began treating his wounds, watching the waves ripple from where the shark had disappeared. He sailed back to the dock where he sought medical attention. He was sent home immediately after being treated for his minor wounds. Back at home, he told the unbelievable story to his family, and they knew he had just had one of the most thrilling experiences of his life. It was a moment he would never forget, and a reminder of the power and majesty of the sea. For 15 years, James had been chasing the thrill of the perfect wave. As a skilled surfer, he's always on the lookout for new surf spots with the most exciting currents and biggest swells. He lives for the rush of adrenaline that comes with riding unpredictable waters and conquering the volatility of the sea. So when he heard about the Gold Coast in Australia, James knew he had to go. It's a surfer's paradise, a place where the ocean swells and wind conditions combine to create some of the most perfect waves on the planet. The surf breaks in Gold Coast are legendary for a good reason. The waves are powerful and consistent, rising up like liquid mountains before crashing down with thunderous force. As James sets foot on the golden sand of the Gold Coast, he feels the energy and excitement of the surf culture all around him. The sun beats down on his skin, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore fills his ears. He can't wait to paddle out and catch his first wave, to feel the rush of adrenaline and the joy of being one with the ocean. For a surfer like James, the Gold Coast is more than just a destination. It's a pilgrimage to a place where the elements come together to create the perfect wave, and he's ready to ride it all the way to the shore. For the first few days of his trip to the Gold Coast, James had been exploring the vibrant underwater world that lay just beneath the surface of the crystal clear waters. Snorkeling and scuba diving had become his daily routine, and he marveled at the colorful corals, exotic fish, and elusive sea turtles that had captured his heart. One sunny afternoon, James decided to venture out on a solo swim, feeling confident and at ease in the water. He was surrounded by the beauty of the reef and enjoyed the sensation of gliding through the water. Although he had heard stories of sharks in the area, James brushed off the thought, knowing that shark attacks were rare and that he had years of experience in the water. As James swam along, admiring the stunning underwater scenery, he noticed a large shadow approaching him. His heart skipped a beat as he realized it was a great white shark. The massive creature glided gracefully through the water, its sleek body perfectly designed for hunting. James was awestruck by the sight of the majestic predator, but he knew that he had to remain calm and collected if he wanted to survive this encounter. James was paralyzed with fear as the great white shark closed in on him. its jaws wide open. He tried to swim away as quickly as he could, but the shark was too fast, and it was upon him in an instant. With a sharp snap of its powerful jaws, the predator clamped down on James's leg, piercing through his skin and pulling him down into the depths of the ocean. James's adrenaline kicked in as he felt the searing pain shoot through his body. He knew he had to fight for his life. He started punching and kicking the shark with all his might, trying to break free from its powerful grip. The water around him turned into a murky red as he continued to struggle against the predator's jaws. Despite his best efforts, James soon realized that he was no match for the shark's immense strength. The creature continued to drag him down deeper and deeper into the ocean, making it harder and harder for him to breathe. James knew he had to come up with a new plan if he wanted to survive this brutal attack. James's heart raced in his chest as he grappled with a massive great white shark that had latched onto his leg. He kicked and thrashed, desperately trying to break free from the predator's vice-like grip. The shark's teeth pierced deeper into his flesh, sending shockwaves of pain through his body. But James refused to succumb to fear. Drawing upon every ounce of survival instincts, he summoned a surge of determination. He jammed his fingers into the shark's eyes, delivering swift and forceful punches to its gills with his free hand. The shark recoiled, loosening its grip on James's leg for a fleeting moment. It was all the opportunity James needed. With a burst of strength, he wriggled and twisted, finally breaking free from the shark's jaws. Blood clouded the water around him, but James didn't have time to dwell on the pain. He kicked upwards with all his might, desperate for a breath of air. The shark pursued him, sensing a chance for another attack, but James was resolute. Flipping onto his back, James delivered a powerful kick to the shark's snout, stunning it momentarily and buying himself precious seconds. He broke the surface of the water, gasping for breath like a man possessed. The pain in his leg was throbbing, but he refused to let it deter him. Summoning every ounce of strength left in his weary body, James swam toward the nearby rocks with renewed determination. He fought against the resistance of the water, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. Finally, with sheer determination and relentless effort, he reached the safety of the shore, dragging his battered body onto the sand. James lay motionless on the sand, his body bleeding profusely. A small crowd gathered, their faces a mix of shock and horror. As James cried out for help, a quick-thinking beachgoer called the paramedics, who arrived in record time to rush him to the hospital. For weeks, James fought for his life in the hospital, his body weak and battered. Yet he refused to give up. With an unwavering support of his loved ones, James slowly but surely regained his strength. Though he would always bear the scars of that fateful day, James emerged from this ordeal with a newfound appreciation for the beauty and fragility of life. The beaches of South Carolina are a sight to behold. The crystal clear water sparkled under the bright sun, and the soft sand felt warm and inviting underfoot. The ocean breeze carried with it the scent of salt and sea, and the sound of crashing waves provided a soothing background melody. Amidst this idyllic setting, a group of college kids had descended upon the beach for spring break, eager to let loose and have some fun. Andy was one of them, a tall and lanky guy with a mischievous grin and a carefree spirit. He had convinced his friends to rent a small yacht for the day, promising them a day of adventure and excitement. As they sailed further away from the shore, the group cracked open beers and started to let loose. The sun was shining, the water was warm, and the day was theirs for the taking. They joked and laughed, enjoying each other's company and the freedom that came with being young and carefree. But as the alcohol flowed more freely, inhibitions were lowered, and the group's sense of judgment became clouded. Someone suggested they dive off the boat and swim around in the deep waters below, daring each other to see who could stay under the longest. Andy was hesitant at first, knowing that the deep waters were home to all kinds of creatures, some of them dangerous. But the peer pressure and the allure of adventure got the better of him. He took a deep breath and plunged into the cool water, the others following suit. For a few moments, it was all laughter and splashing around. But then, out of nowhere, a dark shadow loomed beneath the surface. Andy barely had time to register what was happening before a massive creature revealed itself to Andy and all his friends. To their horror, they met the apex predator of the sea, the great white shark. As Andy struggled in the water, his body thrashing with fear, his eyes locked onto the great white shark's eyes. They were cold and black, filled with a primal hunger that chilled him to the bone. The shark's massive jaws opened wide, revealing row upon row of razor-sharp teeth, each one glinting in the sunlight. Andy's heart pounded in his chest as he fought to stay afloat, but the shark was relentless. Its powerful jaws clamped down on his leg, the teeth sinking deep into his flesh. The pain was excruciating, a white-hot fire that shot through his entire body. The freezing ocean engulfed him, the salt water stinging his eyes and nostrils. He kicked and thrashed, desperate to reach the surface and escape the jaws of the great white. But the shark was relentless, circling him with the precision of a hunter, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Blood seeped into the water from the gash on Andy's leg, a result of the shark's initial assault. The metallic tang of blood filled the water, further inciting the shark's primal instincts. Andy's heart raced as he felt the beast's massive jaws clamp down on his leg, its serrated teeth tearing through flesh and bone like a hot knife through butter. He screamed, the pain unbearable, as the shark shook its massive head, trying to rip him apart. Andy's survival instincts kicked in, and he fought back with everything he had. He jabbed at the shark's eyes, desperately trying to pry open its monstrous jaws that were clamped around his leg. The water turned into a crimson hue as blood mixed with seawater, creating a macabre scene. His vision blurred, his strength waning. Andy knew he was in the fight for his life. He mustered every ounce of energy left in him and delivered a powerful punch to the shark's snout. The shark finally released him, its eyes rolling back in momentary shock, giving Andy the opportunity he needed. He propelled himself towards the surface, blood trailing behind him like a grotesque crimson ribbon. His friends on the boat were screaming his name, reaching out for him as he breached the surface, gasping for air. But the shark wasn't done yet. With a final burst of speed, the great white charged at Andy, its massive jaws gaping wide. Andy's friends watched in horror as the shark's teeth closed around him, tearing him apart in a gruesome spectacle. Blood sprayed into the air, painting the ocean in a deep shade of red as Andy's body disappeared beneath the surface, consumed by a ravenous predator. The sea calmed, the only evidence of the harrowing ordeal being the blood-stained water, a haunting reminder of the brutal power and unforgiving nature of the great white shark. The rest of the trip was a blur for the group. They made up stories about what had happened to Andy, telling anyone who asked that he had met a girl and decided to stay in South Carolina a while longer. But the guilt weighed heavily on them all, especially as the weeks turned into months, and there was still no sign of Andy's body. Laura was an internationally renowned bikini model, whose breathtaking beauty and fearless attitude had taken her to some of the most remote and exotic places on the planet. But even for someone like her, there was nothing quite like the breathtaking mix of beauty and danger found in Shark Ray Alley, a stretch of crystal-clear waters off the coast of Belize. The azure waters of the Caribbean Sea glimmered under the scorching sun, illuminating the vibrant corals and tropical fish that swam within. But beneath the surface, the true highlight of Shark Ray Alley was something else: the sharks. The nurse sharks were a sight to behold, with their smooth gray skin and majestic presence. These creatures were known for their gentle and serene demeanor, making them a popular choice for photo shoots. Laura had swam with them previously, and she felt completely at ease with their company. The way they glided through the water with effortless grace, their inquisitive eyes following her every move, made for an unforgettable experience. As the photo shoot was going smoothly and the crew was well ahead of schedule, Laura decided to take a dip in the tranquil waters, feeling the sun's warmth on her skin. The nurse sharks gracefully circled around her, as if performing an elegant ballet, creating a serene and peaceful atmosphere. Laura felt at ease as she moved through the clear turquoise water, admiring the vibrant coral and fish beneath her. It was a moment of pure bliss, a temporary escape from the chaos of the world. She was so confident in the docile nature of the nurse sharks that she let her guard down, unaware of the ominous presence lurking just beyond her vision. The tranquility of Shark Ray Alley was shattered in an instant. The water that was once so calm turned into a bloody red frenzy. Laura's serene swim turned into a nightmare as she felt an excruciating pain rip through her leg, like hot iron searing her flesh. When she looked down, her worst fears were realized. A bull shark had sunk its razor-sharp teeth into her skin, intent on dragging her deeper into the abyss. The predator's eyes burned with fierce hunger, its jaws clamping down tighter and tighter, as if nothing would stop it from its desired meal. The agony was beyond words, and every movement felt like a struggle against death itself. Laura's screams became choked gasps as she felt herself being dragged into the abyss of the water, her body twisting and contorting as she tried to break free from the shark's vice-like grip. She could feel the water pressure building around her, suffocating her as she struggled to breathe. The bull shark's eyes were fixated on her, its razor-sharp teeth cutting into her flesh like hot knives through butter. Laura could feel her flesh ripping apart from the attacks of this primal predator. The crystal-clear waters of Shark Ray Alley were now transformed into a murky, bloody nightmare. The serene atmosphere was replaced with terror and chaos as Laura's struggles intensified. Her body convulsed with agony as the bull shark continued its merciless attack. Its jaws were clamped down on her leg, pulling her deeper and deeper into the abyss. Laura's vision blurred, and the sound of her own frantic breathing became muffled as the water consumed her. Every second felt like an eternity, and the shark's grip showed no signs of relenting. With her strength fading and the shark's grip tightening, Laura's heart sank. She knew it was only a matter of time before the predator would deliver the final blow. But in a last-ditch effort, she mustered up her energy and kicked out at the bull shark's sensitive snout. The impact jolted the predator, causing it to recoil momentarily. For a fleeting moment, Laura felt a glimmer of hope. The tension in the water was palpable as Laura gasped for air, her heart racing with fear. She knew that the bull shark was still lurking somewhere in the depths below, biding its time before striking again. The quiet stillness of the ocean was shattered by the sounds of her ragged breathing, the only thing standing between her and the ruthless predator. Laura braced herself for the inevitable, knowing that the next attack could be fatal. Laura desperately dragged herself through the water, her injured leg throbbing with every movement. The once calm sea around her now felt like a death trap as she sensed the shark's presence closing in on her. She could hear the creature's powerful strokes through the water, its sharp senses locked onto her scent. Laura's heart raced as she realized the futility of her efforts. The shark was coming for her, and there was nothing she could do to escape. She stopped moving and closed her eyes, steeling herself for the inevitable attack. Suddenly, a massive shadow eclipsed the sun, and Laura's eyes flew open, just in time to see the shark launch itself out of the water. Its body was a blur of sleek, muscular power, its jaws wide open to reveal a terrifying arsenal of teeth. The shark was a force of nature, beautiful in its deadly grace. The jaws of the monstrous shark were only inches away from Laura's face when a sharp object pierced through the predator's open mouth, causing it to let out a piercing screech. The spear gun had landed with a resounding thud, and with one swift motion, had claimed the life of the frenzied beast. The water was stained with blood of both predator and prey, and the lifeless body of the shark bobbed up and down in the waves, a stark contrast to its former fearsome form. Laura's body went limp, her mind unable to process what just happened. She floated in the water like a lifeless doll, her eyes staring blankly at the red-stained waves around her. Suddenly, a pair of strong hands gripped her shoulders, pulling her back to reality. It was Johnny, the cameraman, who had saved her from the jaws of death. He hoisted Laura onto the boat, her body shivering from the shock. The sound of the shot that killed the shark echoed in her ears, and she knew that she owed her life to Johnny's quick thinking. However, the memory of the terrifying incident would haunt her for the rest of her days, a reminder of the fragility of life in the wild. Johannes's family lived in a small coastal town in South Africa. Tuadros, the father, promised Johannes to take him out fishing on his 14th birthday. They had been planning a fishing trip off the coast for weeks. Johannes was excited to spend the day on the boat with his father and younger brother, Adrius, hoping to catch some big fish. Tuadros was an experienced fisherman, but it would be the first time he would take Johannes and Adrius out with him on the deeper parts of the ocean to catch some big fish. Usually the two would only fish on the shallower parts of the water and catch small fish. Johannes woke up on his 14th birthday to the sound of his father's voice calling out to him. He couldn't wait to spend the day out on the water with his father and younger brother. They loaded up their fishing gear and set out on their small boat, the sun just beginning to rise over the horizon. The weather was perfect, with clear blue skies and a gentle breeze blowing. The water was calm, and they had been fishing for several hours, catching all sorts of fish, including yellowfin, tuna, and dorado. They spent their morning enjoying their catch and the peacefulness of the ocean. Johannes felt grateful to be spending his birthday with the two most important people in his life. As they were about to head back to shore, just after midday, something caught Johannes's eye. A shadowy figure was circling their boat, and he soon realized it was a shark. Tuadros attempted to maneuver the boat away from the shark, but it was too late. Before anyone could react, it had grabbed Johannes by the leg from the boat. The family was horrified as they watched the shark pulling Johannes underwater. Without hesitation, Tuadros dove into the water after his son, determined to save him. He could hear Johannes' screams echoing in his head as he swam towards him. As Tuadros reached his son, he saw that the shark had bitten Johannes' leg. Blood was pouring out, and Tuadros knew they had to act quickly. Tuadros pulled Johannes towards him and used all his strength to swim back to their boat. The shark was still circling them, but Tuadros knew he had to protect his son. As the two got to the edge of the boat, Adrius helped pull them both onto the boat. The shark tried to attack again, but Tuadros kicked it away with all his might. Once they were back on the boat, Tuadros and Adrius immediately began to tend to Johannes' wounds. They were horrified to see the extent of his injuries. The shark's teeth had left deep, jagged wounds all over his right leg, and blood was pouring out of him in torrents. They frantically searched for a first aid kit, but all they could find were a few bandages and some antiseptic spray. With no other options, Johannes' father knew that he had to take drastic measures to save his son's life. He grabbed a fishing knife and began cutting away at Johannes' torn flesh, trying to stem the bleeding. It was a gruesome sight, with blood and bits of flesh splattering all over the boat. Johannes' screams of agony filled the air, and his family could do nothing but watch in horror as his father tried to save him. After what felt like an eternity, the bleeding finally slowed down, and Johannes' father was able to wrap his wounds in makeshift bandages, but they knew they needed to get to the hospital quickly. Adrius was able to call for help on the radio, while Tuadros and Johannes were fighting off the shark, and luckily, there was another fishing boat nearby that responded. They helped the wounded Johannes and his family onto their boat and sped towards the shore and took him to the nearest hospital. The morning after the attack, a team of marine biologists and shark experts arrived at the hospital where Johannes was being treated. They were determined to identify the shark that had bitten him and caused such a horrific injury. Johannes's leg was heavily bandaged, and he was still in shock from the experience. But he knew that by helping the experts identify the shark, he could prevent other people from being attacked in the future. The team of experts carefully examined the bite marks on Johannes's leg. They took measurements and analyzed the pattern of the teeth marks. They also took DNA samples from the wound. Using this information, they were able to determine that the shark responsible for the attack was a great white shark. The experts continued their investigation, trying to determine why the shark had attacked Johannes. They examined the area where the attack took place and looked for any signs of unusual behavior from the shark. After several days of intense research and analysis, they discovered that the shark was likely a juvenile great white who had become disoriented and confused. The shark was probably searching for food and mistook Johannes's leg for prey. The experts worked tirelessly to share their findings with the public and educate people about the importance of shark conservation. They urged people to respect the ocean and its inhabitants and to take precautions when swimming or fishing in shark-infested waters. The attack took place near Seal Island, a well-known location for great white sharks. The island was home to a large colony of seals, which attracted the sharks to the area. Despite the potential danger, many fishermen and tourists still venture out into the waters around the island, hoping to catch a glimpse of the majestic creatures. Meanwhile, Johannes continued to recover from his injuries with the support of his family and the entire community. He was grateful for the work of the experts who had identified the shark, and he hoped that his experience could help prevent future attacks and protect both humans and sharks alike. Sebastian and Olivia were a surfer couple from California, and they had been recently married. They always dreamed of spending their honeymoon in Hawaii, and they had been planning their dream honeymoon for months. They were both passionate about the ocean and the thrill of catching waves, and they couldn't wait to explore the famous surf spots in Hawaii. It was the perfect destination for the romantic getaway. As they landed in Honolulu, they were greeted by the sun and warm, salty breeze and the sound of waves crashing against the shore. They checked into their cozy beachfront cottage and immediately fell in love with the stunning scenery around them. And as they stepped onto the sand, they felt like they were in paradise. The first few days of their honeymoon were spent surfing some of the best waves in the world. They visited Waikiki Beach, where they rode the gentle waves and watched the local surfers show off their skills. They also went to the North Shore, where they challenged themselves with the bigger, more powerful waves. They also hiked through the lush rainforest, and they visited the historic Pearl Harbor Memorial. On the second week of their honeymoon, they decided to visit the island of Maui. There, they rented a Jeep and drove along the scenic road to Hana, taking in breathtaking views of the coastline. One day, they decided to try their luck at a secluded surf spot that they had heard about from the locals. It was a hidden gem surrounded by stunning cliffs and crystal clear water. As they paddled out, they noticed that there was no other surfers around, and they felt like they had found their own private paradise. But as they waited for the next set of waves, they suddenly heard a loud splash behind them. They noticed a dark shape moving towards them. At first, they thought it was a dolphin, but as it got closer, they realized it was a tiger shark, its jaws wide open. The shark's razor-sharp teeth were visible, and the couple froze in terror. Their hearts raced as they watched the shark swim towards them, its sharp teeth glinting in the sun. Sebastian and Olivia tried to paddle away, but the shark quickly caught up to them. The couple could see the shark circling them, and they knew they were in serious trouble. Fear filled their hearts as they saw the massive predator getting closer and closer. Olivia's heart was pounding as she remembered stories of tiger sharks attacking humans. She looked over at Sebastian, who was trying to remain calm, but she could see the fear in his eyes too. They had never felt so vulnerable before. The couple tried to stay together and keep their boards close, hoping that the shark would lose interest and swim away. But the tiger shark seemed to be fixated on them, and it kept circling them, getting closer with every pass. Olivia's mind raced as she tried to come up with a plan. She knew that they had to stay calm and not make any sudden movements that would attract the shark's attention. They had to make themselves as small and unappetizing as possible. As the shark swam closer, Sebastian grabbed Olivia's hand and whispered to her to stay still. He knew that any sudden movements could provoke the shark and make it attack. They watched in horror as the shark came closer and closer until they could see its eyes staring at them. Suddenly, the shark turned and swam away, disappearing into the depths of the ocean. The couple let out a sigh of relief, but they knew they had narrowly escaped a terrifying fate. They started paddling towards the shore as quickly as they could, hoping that the shark wasn't following them anymore. They could feel the fear rising in their chest, but they refused to give up. They kept paddling, their arms burning with exertion. Finally, they reached the shore and they scrambled into the sand, panting and sweating. Sebastian and Olivia paddled back to the shore, shaken but grateful to be alive. They knew that they had been lucky, and they would never forget the terror they had experienced that day. From that day on, they vowed to always be aware of the dangers of the ocean and to respect its creatures, especially the mighty tiger shark. As their honeymoon came to an end, Sebastian and Olivia knew that they had had a one-of-a-kind experience and made memories that would last a lifetime. Juan had always known he was a man of the sea. Born and raised in Oslo, Cebu, he was always drawn to the beauty and mystery of the ocean. He had been a shallow sea pearl diver for as long as he could remember, and there was no place he would rather be than in the crystal-clear waters that surrounded his home. Oslo was a small fishing village located on the southeastern coast of Cebu. It was a place of tranquil beauty, with the sparkling blue waters of the Bohol Sea stretching out as far as the eye could see. The village was nestled among verdant hills, with wide sandy beaches that were fringed by palm trees. The locals were friendly and welcoming, and the pace of life was slow and unhurried. It was a place of simple pleasures, where the sound of the waves and the scent of the sea air were enough to make Juan feel content. One warm afternoon, Juan was exploring the shallow waters, diving for pearls in its favorite spot. The sun danced on the surface, casting a mesmerizing play of light as Juan scanned the sandy seabed. As he reached out to pick up a particularly gleaming pearl, something caught his eye and his peripheral vision. With a sudden burst of speed, a massive figure was closing in on him. Juan's heart skipped a beat as he realized it was a bull shark, known for its aggressive nature and sharp teeth. Panic surged through him as he tried to swim away, but the shark was faster, closing the distance in a matter of seconds. Before Juan could react, the shark lunged at him, its jaws snapping shut around his arm. The pain was searing as the shark's razor-sharp teeth sank into his flesh, drawing blood that mixed with the surrounding waters. Juan's mind raced as he struggled to break free, but the shark's grip was relentless. With a sickening crunch, the shark bit off Juan's arm, leaving him stunned and bleeding in the water. The once crystal-clear sea turned crimson as blood billowed around him, clouding his vision. As the shark swam away with Juan's arm in his jaws, Juan was left stunned and reeling in shock. The pain was excruciating, and panic surged through him as he realized the severity of his injuries. With a sheer force of will, he managed to swim towards the surface, his remaining arm propelling him through the water. Just as Juan reached the surface, he gasped for air and looked around, hoping for a way out of this nightmare. But his heart sank as he noticed a massive fin in the distance, cutting through the water with menacing speed. His worst fears were coming true. The shark was coming back for him. With a growing sense of dread, Juan tried to swim away as fast as he could, but he knew it was futile. He was injured, bleeding, and vulnerable. The shark could smell his blood and was closing in fast. Juan knew what was about to happen, but he just couldn't do anything. Suddenly, A sharp pain shot through his left leg, and he let out a piercing scream. His scream echoed across the water, a call for help that went unanswered. The massive shark continued to sink its teeth deeper into Juan's flesh, but he refused to give up. He fought with all his might, summoning every ounce of strength and willpower that he had left. Juan kicked, punched, and thrashed about in a desperate attempt to free himself from the shark's grip. The pain was unbearable, but Juan refused to let the shark be the end of him. As the shark relentlessly attacked Juan, a sense of doom set in. He wondered if this is how it was going to end, his lifeless body sinking to the bottom of the ocean, consumed by a predator. But the will to survive coursed through Juan's veins, fueling him to keep fighting. He could feel the rush of adrenaline pulsing through his body, giving him a temporary boost of strength. Despite his valiant efforts, Juan's screams for help went unheard. He was on his own, or so he thought. In a stroke of good fortune, the commotion caused by Juan's struggle caught the attention of a local who was patrolling the area on his boat. The local, hearing Juan's cries for help, quickly assessed the situation and took immediate action. He grabbed his spear gun and dove into the water, ready to face the rampaging bull shark. The local, using all his skills and experience, aimed his spear gun at the shark's eyes and snout. The shock and pain of the hit made the shark swim away, releasing Juan from his grip. Juan, now half alive and sinking in the water, was still in danger, but he wasn't alone anymore. Without hesitation, the local swam across the water to retrieve Juan. Together, they emerged from the water, shaken but alive, their lives forever linked by this harrowing experience. Juan was whisked away to the nearest hospital, his body still throbbing with pain from the brutal attack. The doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to stabilize him, rushing him into the operating room for a life-saving procedure. Despite the ordeal, Juan's tenacity had paid off. He was alive. When Juan woke up, he was met with a flurry of emotions. He was relieved to still be breathing, but the reality of losing his right arm and left leg hit him hard. It was a difficult adjustment, but Juan was surrounded by the unwavering support of his family and friends. They rallied by his side, providing comfort, encouragement, and love during his recovery. Their presence was a constant reminder of how precious life truly was. The sun shone brilliantly over Lake Nicaragua, casting a golden glow on the water's surface as John and Katie Thomas, a newlywed couple from Ontario, Canada, embarked on their honeymoon adventure. They had chosen Nicaragua for its tropical paradise, seeking a break from the blistering cold of their home country. As they boarded a boat for a tour around the lake, their excitement grew, and they were mesmerized by the breathtaking scenery surrounding them. The lush greenery of the surrounding landscape, the tranquil waters of the lake, and the gentle breeze rustling through the trees created a serene atmosphere. The boat glided smoothly through the water as the couple marveled at the beauty of their surroundings. The boat glided to a halt, and the couple wasted no time in plunging into the mysterious depths of Lake Nicaragua. Their excitement was palpable as they explored the unknown realm beneath the surface, their eyes wide with wonder. The vibrant marine life welcomed them, with colorful fish darting and swirling around them, and coral swaying with otherworldly gardens. But as they ventured deeper, the water grew darker, and an uneasy feeling crept over them. Katie's senses sharpened as she noticed a foreboding shape lurking in the murky abyss below. Her heart skipped a beat as she squinted, trying to discern its identity, but it vanished before her eyes. The tension in the water was palpable, and a sense of mystery hung in the air, sending shivers down their spines. What could it have been? The couple exchanged nervous glances, their curiosity piqued, and a sense of trepidation gnawed at them as they continued to explore the enigmatic underwater world, wary of what other secrets it might hold. Little did they know, a colossal bull shark had been silently lurking in the unfathomable depths of the lake, keenly observing their every move. Drawn by the commotion caused by the boat, the predator had been stealthily closing in, patiently biding its time. John, unknowingly separated from Katie, found himself alone in the water, vulnerable and oblivious to the impending danger. With a sudden bone-chilling jolt, a fin sliced through the surface, sending ripples of fear through the air. The massive shark circled closer, its predatory instincts kicking into high gear. Its eyes glimmered with primal fear as it homed in on its prey. The water seemed to thicken with tension as the shark's sleek form glided sinuously through the shadows, circling John with calculated precision. The atmosphere was suffused with palpable suspense as the shark closed the distance, its dark eyes fixed on its unsuspecting target, ready to strike at any moment. The couple's idyllic swim had turned into a heart-stopping battle for survival, as John remained oblivious to the deadly predator lurking just beneath the surface, poised to unleash its primal power. Katie's heart skipped a beat as she realized the danger that her husband was in. She screamed, trying to warn John of the impending attack, but it was too late. In a split second, the bull shark shot out from under the water like a torpedo, its jaws clamping down on John's leg with brutal force. John cried out in agony as the shark thrashed, mauling him in a frenzy. Katie's screams echoed across the lake, alerting their guide, who was still on the boat. He sprang into action, grabbing a spear gun and a knife, and leapt into the water to rescue John. The water turned into a swirling vortex of blood and water as the shark continued its attack, tearing through John's flesh mercilessly. Katie could only watch in horror, paralyzed by fear. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, the guide deftly made his way towards John and the ferocious shark, his mind racing with urgency. As he closed in, he took a deep breath, steadying his nerves, and with one swift motion, thrust his spear gun into the side of the frenzied predator. The shark recoiled, its jaws tightening around John's body, unwilling to let go of its prey. Undeterred, the guide charged forward, his knife glinting menacingly in the murky water. With each frenzied stab, he fought with all his might, plunging his blade into the beast's belly in a desperate bid to free John from its relentless grip. The water boiled with tension as the predator thrashed and writhed, its primal instincts driving it to fight until the bitter end. The struggle was fierce and the outcome uncertain, as the guide fought tooth and nail to save John from certain doom. The water seemed to tremble with the ferocity of the battle, the guide's frantic movements illuminated by the glimmering light of the underwater world. But with each passing second, the guide's efforts paid off, and the shark's grip on John began to loosen. The atmosphere was charged with nail-biting suspense as the guide valiantly battled the predator, fighting for the lives of those in his care. Minutes felt like an eternity as John endured the excruciating pain of the shark's attack. His vision blurred, and he felt his strength fading. Katie's cry spurred the guide to fight even harder, determined to save John. At last, the bull shark succumbed to its injuries, and with one final stab from the guide's knife, it released John and retreated into the depths of the lake. The guide swiftly pulled John's limp body towards the boat, leaving a trail of blood. Katie's emotions were a mix of relief and horror as she saw her husband's mangled leg, but she was grateful he was alive. They rushed to the hospital, where John underwent emergency surgery, resulting in the amputation of his leg to save his life. Despite the tragedy, John and Katie's love for each other only grew stronger. They learned to cherish every moment, living life to the fullest, and never taking anything for granted. Sarah and Jake couldn't wait to begin their thrilling expedition into the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of Hawaii. As they set out, the bright sun sparkled on the tranquil water, luring them in with its gentle waves. With their hearts racing and adrenaline pumping, they were ready to uncover the mysteries of the powerful and mysterious sharks that prowled these waters. Every detail of their gear had been meticulously checked and double-checked to ensure their safety, and they were eager to put it to the test. Their eyes locked onto the deep blue sea, searching for any signs of their elusive prey. As they drifted further and further from the safety of the shore, a sense of unease crept over them. They knew the dangers of the deep, but their excitement overpowered any fear. They tried to tag as many sharks as possible, and nothing would stand in their way. As they submerged themselves into the cool, clear water, Sarah's heart pounded excitedly as she spotted that magnificent oceanic white-tipped shark gliding effortlessly through the depths. With a flick of its powerful tail, it disappeared into the blue expanse before them. Without hesitation, Sarah signaled Jake to follow, but Jake signaled Sarah to stop the pursuit. Jake felt unease emanating from the shark's erratic behavior. Jake thought Sarah obliged his instruction to return to the boat, but Sarah was determined to get closer to the shark. The shark's sleek body glistened in the sun's rays, and Sarah was entranced by its deadly grace. The closer she got, the more she could feel the primal energy emanating from the predator. Jake frantically waved his arms, signaling Sarah to return to the boat's safety. But Sarah was entranced by the shark's hypnotic movements, lost in the wild beauty of the predator. Her fascination with the creature proved to be a fatal mistake. The shark launched towards Sarah with lightning-fast speed, its jaws gaping wide. Before she could scream, the predator clamped down hard on her leg, yanking her beneath the water's surface. The force of the bite was like nothing Sarah had ever experienced before. The shark's teeth sliced through her wetsuit, and she could feel the piercing pain in her leg, signaling the beginning of a terrifying fight for survival. As the water grew murky and dark, Sarah struggled to break free from the powerful grip of the shark's jaws. But the predator was too strong, its hold unrelenting. It dragged her deeper and deeper into the abyss, and Sarah knew that her chances of survival were slim at best. Her heart racing, her lungs burning, she fought with all of her might against the relentless force that threatened to claim her life. Jake saw the horrifying scene take place before his eyes. He knew he had to act fast if he intended to save Sarah. Jake's heart pounded with fear and adrenaline as he swam closer to the attack scene. The water was murky and filled with bubbles, making it difficult to see what was happening. He could hear Sarah's muffled screams and knew that time was running out. He pushed himself harder, his arms and legs pumping with all the strength he could muster. As he got closer, he saw the full horror of the situation. The shark's razor-sharp teeth were dug deep into Sarah's mangled leg, and blood was gushing like a river. She fought with all her might, but the predator's grip was too strong. Jake knew he had to act fast, or Sarah would be lost forever. Without hesitation, he lunged at the shark, grabbing its dorsal fin with all his might. The shark thrashed and jerked, trying to shake Jake off, but he held tight. He could feel the immense power of the predator beneath him, and his heart pounded in his chest as he struggled to keep his grip. Finally, with a burst of strength, Jake hit the shark's snout, shocking it with a jolt of pain, forcing its mouth open and freeing Sarah's leg. The shark recoiled and temporarily retreated to the depths of the sea. Jake and Sarah took this opportunity and immediately approached the waiting boat, leaving a trail of blood in their wake. Sarah's leg was gruesome, blood gushing out from the wound and staining the water around them. With every move, Sarah could feel the pain throbbing through her entire body, making lifting her leg hard. But Jake knew he couldn't waste any time. He quickly took out his first aid kit and tied a tourniquet tightly around Sarah's leg, hoping to stem the bleeding. The tension in the air was palpable as the shark continued to circle the boat, waiting for its chance to attack again. Every breath was a struggle, and Sarah could feel her heart pounding against her chest as she struggled to stay conscious. The sound of the shark's fins slicing through the water sent shivers down their spines, and they knew they had to act quickly to return to shore. As they sped back to shore, Sarah felt relieved knowing she had survived a deadly attack by one of the ocean's most notorious predators. She couldn't stop thinking about the shark and how close she came to losing her life. When they arrived back on land, Sarah was rushed to the hospital, receiving medical attention for her wounds. She knew she would never forget the experience and always had a newfound respect for the power of the ocean and its inhabitants. From that day on, Sarah and Jake continued their research on shark behavior, but this time, they made sure to always be aware of their surroundings and respect the power of these magnificent creatures.